Story 1. His promises were clearly useless. He said he would reduce egg prices on day one, and they have only gone up. Once he starts putting tariffs on everything, all the prices for everything will go up. I don't know why you are questioning why he would hold to anything he said. Story 2. He lied. Like he always does. The track record is very clear. Lots of Americans ignored that record, thinking this time would be different. It's not different at all, is it? Story 3. If you want to know what someone really thinks and will really do, listen to what they say to each other, not what they say to you. What they were saying to each other was criticizing the federal government and advocating tax cuts for the wealthy. So it aligns perfectly. Story 4. First, Trump is a liar. Second, Trump is a conman. Third, Trump is a felon. Fourth, he is raiding the coffers and will pardon himself, as the ashes of our nation still glow. Story 5. Can we stop pretending that anything he said in the campaign was true? He is a lying liar who lies. People who did not vote for him know that. People who did vote for him know that. Children who do not know what lying is know that he is a liar. So stop pretending like anyone does not know. He lied. Story 6. Trump lies all the time. Everybody already knows this. Anybody who believed anything that Trump said is not thinking clearly. Everybody who voted for Trump is not thinking clearly. There is no such thing as a Trump supporter who is a good person. Story 7. I know people who voted for Trump and the Grand Old Party because they were seriously concerned about the national debt and the burden it will bring to their children. Story 8. It does not. His voters do not care. I am not sure why we keep trying to catch them in gotcha moments. They do not care if they are hypocrites or lied to. They literally do not care. They care that they won, and they think we are all too weak or scared to fight like they did. Story 9. Anyone who thinks Trump meant any of his promises other than deporting as many people as possible in as inhumane a way as possible is delusional. He is there to avoid prison, make as much money as possible, make as much money for other people he likes as possible, deport people, and nothing else. Story 10. He is strictly in there to loot our country again for his friends. Those who vote for him are miserable and just want company, so they lie and say he will make America better. But they know it is not true. Trump will be the reason this country fails in the end. We had problems without him. He made all of them significantly worse. Story 11. Last fall, this guy stated directly to the American public in one of the biggest events of the campaign that he had the concept of a plan for a healthcare alternative that he promised to have 7 years prior. Anyone who thinks his promises mean anything is several steps beyond gullible. Story 12. There are two sets of promises. The public televised campaign promises that get the general public to vote, and the secret insider promises to his financial backers. Adding debt to offset a massive tax cut that isn't for the general public doesn't need to be advertised to the general public. Story 13. His only true campaign promises were to his owners. Implement Project 2025 as fast as possible. Pay back all the wealthy individuals that funded his election with more tax cuts and more corruption. Surrender the security of the country to his owners, Russia and China. Profit. Story 14. His actual promise was to appease people whose only real political ideology is being contrarian to anything left-leaning while robbing us all for himself and his rich friends. Story 15. It doesn't. He's a lying, lifelong con artist, and he said whatever the simpletons needed to hear to vote for him and his benefactors' screwed-up causes. Story 16. My gas prices are hovering around $4 per gallon. I know that's nowhere near the worst in the United States of America, but I kind of want to order some custom stickers with Trump's face and hand pointing to a message bubble with, "I did that." Not because I think it's accurate, but because why not? If Trump's presidency and life were all about accuracy, no one would have any reason to naysay him. But there are so many reasons. So many. Story 17. His campaign promises were just lies to get votes from demographics that he would have never gotten. He changed his position on issues so many times. If you were a women's rights group and complained that flavored bubblegum was too expensive, he would have made a promise to make it cheaper. And for an administration claiming massive fraud and government waste of our tax dollars, they have no problem in testing public sentiment on taking over the Gaza Strip. Nothing bad would ever happen with that, right? He's nothing but a classic confidence scheme con man. Mafia Don business model to avoid prosecution combined with a shock and awe approach to overwhelm your brain while he goes about setting up his rich friends and himself in the background. He's setting a dangerous precedent for future rich opportunists to exploit. Story 18, it doesn't. Balancing the budget, lowering grocery prices, and having concepts of a healthcare plan were all just lies. Trump cares about three things: tariffs, immigration, and revenge. Story 19, Trump. All I had to say were words like groceries, bacon, eggs, and all the swing voters and moderates ate it up and voted for me. Like a miracle, they all forgot about my first term. Story 20. He said, "There will be so much winning that we'll get sick of winning." What his voters falsely assumed is that they'd be included among those who will be winning. Story 21. They align perfectly fine with what he promised his oligarch friends. Gut social services to make the worker class more dependent on jobs, which suppresses wages, and give a gigantic tax cut to the super rich. Caroline Leavitt will hold a press conference lamenting how the Biden economy was worse than expected and that we need this new debt to clean it up. Supporters of Make America Great Again are going to embrace it all and will call anyone who points out the obvious flaws in that theory stupid. Story 22. It does not. Trump just straight up lied, and anyone that voted for him based on those lies are suckers in his scheme, and at this rate he is going to take down the whole country with him. Story 23. His campaign promised to undermine America without thought or remorse. The people who voted for him are either happy to see him do it, blame the left for every bad thing he does anyway, or have literally no idea what is happening on a day-to-day basis in the country. Story 24. Motherfucker racked up 25% of our current $36 trillion worth of debt. So, shocker. I'm an American, but I'll say it anyway. Stupid, uninformed Americans. Story 25. If anyone believed any of those promises, I have a large catalog of bridges for sale that can be perused at your leisure. But it is unfortunate that you already lost your trailer to the bank when you bought all that Donald John Trump and Trump coin. In all seriousness, though, isn't this part of the plan? To make the poor demographic even larger, less informed, and poorer so they can be more easily convinced of the next scapegoat and open their pockets. More or less just business as usual, but accelerating the process. Story 26. His promises are worth as much as his loaded diaper. And he has never cared about debt, whether his own debt or the country's. He has created by far the largest deficits in history. He does not care at all. Story 27. There are 1,000 snarky answers I could give you, but as honest and objective as I can possibly be, the answer really is a simple it doesn't. Donald has zero interest in campaign promises. He ran to enrich himself and to dodge legal consequences. Now he's a narcissist who needs constant praise. So he will change course quickly and frequently if he sees his approval among his base slipping. But that base has been conditioned for the past decade to applaud literally everything he says and does. So there's little risk of losing the love, even as he does everything the opposite of what they voted him in for. Story 28. He lied. Everything he said was to stay out of jail and to make money. The Republicans don't actually care about the debt. They care about the Democrats increasing the debt, which is different. Story 29. This allows them to extend tax cuts to the rich. All his promises to the poor were lies, and this was the real goal and promise to billionaires behind the scenes. Story 30. Campaign promises. Snicker, chortle, laughter, wheeze. Story 31. Oh my God. Are we still wasting time by trying to portray Trump as dishonest? Why? To convince whom? Seriously, what is the point? This is a failed strategy. This is not how we win this. Story 32. I read an article about how Elon was bragging this week that Dogecoin was going to reduce the deficit by up to $1 trillion by 2026. That's $3.5 trillion in the wrong direction by my modest math skills. Story 33. The ones he made publicly or the ones he made privately. Kamala campaigned publicly and likely had every intention to follow through on the things she promised on the campaign trails. Donald did this new thing. All the kids are doing it. It's called lying. He would just go out into a campaign event and say whatever nonsense came to mind until the crowd responded. Story 34. It doesn't. This is on top of the $8 trillion we got stuck with from his first term. Then again, maybe it does. He overtly promised this, and we were warned about Project 2025, and by God, we're getting it from a fire hose. Story 35. I don't understand how he and Elon are claiming to cut expenses and funding billions in waste. Yet he is proposing adding to the debt ceiling. Balance the budget with all of this cutting. Story 36. Was 4.5 trillion added to the national debt? Talking about real money, not what you think will happen. Was adding 12 trillion to the debt part of Biden's campaign promises? Story 37. Biden administration got to an 8% debt to GDP. Even if Trump cuts $2 trillion, the United States will still run a deficit, just a 2% one, which is far more sustainable because it is smaller than the pace of GDP growth. Story 38. It does not. Also, one senator pointed out that closing the United States Agency for International Development, the agency that feeds thousands of malnourished children and women and operates hospitals in places where there is no health care, and distributes condoms to prevent babies from being born with AIDS, operated on an annual budget that equals about 9 hours of income from taxes for a whole year. To save these tiny bits of money, when compared to the annual budget, they are going to need that extra $4 billion in taxes from the middle class, or borrow it so they will have a reason to end Social Security and Medicare next year, to give the billionaires and corporations lower taxes. Closing these agencies is not saving much money. Those employees do not make millions in salaries. Women, children, and babies are literally dying every hour of every day right now because this agency suddenly ceased operations and the food is rotting in the warehouses. Musk is a monster and Trump is worse. Trump increased the deficit by $8 trillion while he was in office last time, and the majority was from his tax cuts for the wealthy. Story 39. The thing about a second term is that he does not have to worry about upsetting his supporters. He no longer needs their votes. Let's hope the constitutional order holds and he is gone by 2028. Story 40. In the new analysis released by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the prominent nonpartisan think tank estimated that Trump's plans could add $7.75 trillion to the national debt over roughly the next decade, compared to an estimated $3.95 trillion boost for Harris's policies. His campaign promises added trillions to the debt. Now he's doing that. Aligns fine. Story 41. I've got a big, beautiful bridge. It's a huge, beautiful bridge. Some say it's the best bridge of them all. I don't know, that's what people say. I'll sell it to whoever still thinks Republicans are fiscal conservatives. They never have been. It's always been a strategy to defund the government to the point of dysfunction and then point at it and say, see, government is broken, bad, and wasteful. They use that to justify repealing everything, getting rid of oversight and social safety nets in order to put more money in their backers' pockets. Story 42. The only promise his conservative voters really cared about was his promise to hurt people and harm America. They do not actually care about debt except in that it provides an avenue for them to oppress or harm their disfavored groups. Story 43. Seriously, why would anyone believe anything he says? Remember his 2016 fantasies. Great healthcare for all, national debt eliminated in 2 weeks, invest $500 billion in infrastructure, Great Wall paid for by Mexico, and on it goes. Story 44. To be fair, we only know the promises made in public. I'm sure there are other favors from other people to whom he owes and has promised quite a bit. Story 45. He is a Republican. Look at the last 100 years. Republican presidents pretty much always wreck the economy with tax cuts, deregulation, also known as donor handouts, and radical spending on things that have little to no benefit. They are like a child in a toy store with their dad's credit card. Democrats almost always lower the deficit, taxing things appropriately, regulating industries appropriately, and spending on necessities like infrastructure. It is profoundly fiscally irresponsible to vote for any Republican. Story 46. Simple, he's going for the buffer overrun exploit. Once you get it high enough, it will overrun into the negatives. Then every country will owe us. Brilliant. Story 47. It doesn't, but the simpletons will believe any damn thing we tell them, so we'll just tell them it isn't a problem, and that it will cause transgender people to cry boo-hoo-hoo. Simple as that. Story 48. The people who voted for him do not care about the national debt. They do not care about the promises he made. They do not care about grocery prices. Things they care about: he's white. He's a man. He's straight. He opposes immigration, specifically from non-white countries. All of his speeches border on racism and homophobia. He is friends with a fringe white supremacist. The erasure of the identities of those who don't fit perfectly into the gender roles he believes in. Most importantly, the defeat of the liberals. Story 49. I don't care about you. I just want your vote, said Trump. This is the answer to every question about Trump's policy contradictions. He lied to your face and told you he was doing it. Story 50. Investment in the autocratic future of the United States in the face of the successful ability of the Chinese to collaborate on a scale impossible with current rules, regulations, and attitudes in our country. Not looking good. 35,000 people died building the Panama Canal, as he stated at the inauguration. Story 51. It doesn't. He's a liar. He's a con man, but he appeals to the poor white racist crowd that elected him. They blame someone else for all the negatives, the deep state and so on. They are cheering him for cutting the programs that are their lifeblood. They will be hungry and homeless soon, and it will be the Democrats and immigrants' fault.